So we'll discuss what is ectopic pregnancy. In the last class of pathology, we discussed what is choriocarcinoma. We'll start off with ectopic pregnancy, then we'll go to the cysts of ovaries, cysts and tumors of ovaries. First of all, coming to ectopic pregnancy or ectopic gestation. Okay. This is pregnancy or implantation specifically of the embryo in a site that is other than uterus. Right, it might occur in most commonly occurs in fallopian tubules in almost 90% cases. In 90% of cases, it occurs in fallopian tubules. Fallopian tubes. Okay, rest of the time it can occur in other parts of the ovary. So it can occur in um, abdominal cavity. It can occur in. I'll show you one image. Hold on, it'll be easier. Because so polycystic किधर गया? See, so in normal pregnancy it should be implanted in the wall of the uterus endometrium में. ठीक है, यहाँ पर problem क्या होता है ectopic pregnancy में? It is getting implanted everywhere other than endometrium. So it is getting implanted either in the ampulla, in fallopian tubule itself. It can get implanted in the ampulla or in the isthmus. It can get implanted in the abdomen. Okay, if you can see outside there also a vertical implantation can occur. It can occur inside the ovary or in the cervix or in the peritoneal layer as well. Okay, those are all examples of ectopic pregnancy. But the more common one will be in 90% of the cases it will occur in fallopian tubules alone. Now, as such, there are a few predisposing factors that might cause ectopic gestation. Okay, those predisposing factors will include pelvic infectious disease or pelvic inflammatory disease. So, predisposing factors for ectopic pregnancy. Why ectopic pregnancy can occur? So, if the patient has, let's suppose one factor is PID, pelvic inflammatory disease. This is a disease in which the patient has infection in the reproductive organs. Okay, so that is called pelvic inflammatory disease. It's also abbreviated PID. Or the patient might have PID with chronic salpingitis. With chronic salpingitis. Chronic salpingitis literally refers to inflammation in the fallopian tube. Okay, or the patient might have. Second factor is vertebral adhesions. So adhesions that are present inside the tubes, inside the fallopian tubules that make the what you call fertilized egg stick to that particular tube. Okay, but in 50% of the cases it will occur in a normal tube. Okay, in 50% of the cases it occurs in normal tubes, normal fallopian tubes. It can occur. Okay. Generally speaking, there will be four main outcomes if ectopic pregnancy occurs. See, ectopic pregnancy as such, if it occurs, let's suppose we take 100 cases of ectopic pregnancy, okay, or 100 cases, not 100%, sorry. If we take 100 cases of ectopic pregnancy, 50 of them will occur in normal cases where everything is normal with the patient's fallopian tubes. In the other 50, it can either be PID where there is infection of your reproductive organs, or the fallopian tubes might have adhesions. Okay? And if it is occurring in cases where it is what you call ectopic, that most of the time it will occur in fallopian tubules. Okay, 90% of the time it will occur in fallopian tubules. In 50% of the cases it might occur in it will occur in cases where the tube does not have any problem. ठीक है, ये 90% ही रहता fallopian tubes में ही होता, but particular 50% of the time it might not have a problem. The rest 50% of the time the patient might have PID, or they might have vertebral adhesions, or they might have some other abnormality. Okay, as such, the outcomes of ectopic pregnancy will include outcomes of ectopic pregnancy, what happens? So one outcome will be that intratubular hemorrhage will occur. So inside the fallopian tubule there might be hemorrhage leading to the formation of hematosalpinx. Hematosalpinx is a condition in which formation of hematosalpinx literally means blood inside your fallopian tubules. Okay. uh, Another, other than that, there might be tubular rupture. So it is also called tubal rupture, where the tube is literally rupturing out. And what happens is inside the peritoneum blood will start flowing. There will be intraperitoneal hemorrhage. Intraperitoneal hemorrhage. Okay. Now this is a medical emergency. Okay, if a patient is having tubal rupture, diagnosing early is very critical. You can diagnose this by testing for HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. Okay, if their levels are particularly high, or if you can perform ultrasonography, or if you are able to perform endometrial biopsy. Okay, if you perform endometrial biopsy, you'll be able to see that uterine cells are undergoing changes. Okay, they will not be normal, and chorionic villi will generally be absent in such cases. That is when you can suspect that tubal rupture has occurred. Okay, I'll show you how chorionic villi look. Now, tubal rupture might be one outcome. Another outcome will be resorption of products of conception. Resorption of conception products. इसका मतलब ये है कि let's suppose the patient is having either a normal delivery, or they are having a miscarriage, or there is early delivery, or there is a pre-planned termination. Okay? Either of these cases, they are having either miscarriage, or there is a vertical termination of pregnancy, pre-planned termination of pregnancy, या फिर normal pregnancy या early pregnancy. In either of these cases, what ends up happening is some of the cells of placenta and some fetal cells remain inside the tube, fetal tube, inside the fallopian tube. Okay, that is called resorption of products of conception. Those are products of conception. They will be reabsorbed. They will remain inside the tube. That is one outcome. Then another outcome is extrusion into abdominal cavity. इसका मतलब ये है, once ectopic pregnancy occurs in the fallopian tube, that fallopian tube will not be able to sustain that embryo, and what happens is that embryo literally comes out of the fallopian tubules. So let's suppose I draw the fallopian tube like this, okay, and it is ending in ovary here. Okay, you still have fimbriae here, right? This is opening into abdominal cavity. What happens is, let's suppose यहाँ पर आपका attachment or implantation is occurring. So this green part represents the embryo. This fellow literally falls out into the abdominal cavity. Okay, that is called extrusion of this thing, embryo into abdominal cavity. It is also called tubal abortion. What happens is ectopic pregnancy product in your fallopian tubule will end up in abdominal or peritoneal cavity through abdominal ostium. Okay, abdominal ostium is the small hole, small opening between your fallopian tubes, your fimbriae of fallopian tubules and abdominal cavity. So the fetus will literally come out into the abdomen. That can be another outcome. So these are the four outcomes of what do you call ectopic pregnancy. It is hard to have a normal baby with ectopic pregnancy. It will have to take special precautions and things like that. In any case, I was telling you, I'll show you how chorionic villi look, right? One second. Chorionic villi. One second, hold on. See, this is how chorionic villi looks. Now, inside the uterus, if you what do you call maximize into this section where the placenta is attaching to the mother, यहाँ पर you can see that it is creating small blood vessels. These are blood vessels of the baby that are opening into the blood of the mother. Okay, so these are the first point of contact between the child and the mother's blood. Okay, those are called chorionic villi. In such problems, what will happen is either chorionic villi, or in vesicular mole, you had chorionic villi which are getting inflamed and there is cystic swelling. In ectopic degeneration, or sorry, in ectopic pregnancy, especially if there is tubal rupture, these chorionic villi will be absent. Okay, if you perform ultrasound, you'll be able to see that if the patient is having tubal rupture, these chorionic villi will be completely absent, and that is a medical emergency. All right. You also see higher amounts of HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin hormone. Okay, those can be tested. You can also perform what do you call biopsies, specific biopsy of your endometrium, wherein your uterus will show some changes. The cell lining of your uterus will not be normal. So that is about ectopic gestation. If you have any doubts, please let me know, or else we'll move forward. Okay. Now coming to ovarian cysts and tumors. The first one we'll discuss about is follicular and luteal cysts. Now, these cysts can be helpful rather than being a pathological condition. They can actually be helpful, especially the luteal cyst, because luteal cysts are cysts that develop from your corpus luteum. Okay, corpus luteum, if you remember your reproductive system physiology, it will stay if pregnancy occurs and if implantation occurs. Okay, it will stay on till fourth month almost, continuously producing progesterone. Luteal cysts do the same thing. They will help in production of progesterone. They themselves will produce progesterone, which will help in maintaining pregnancy. Now, normally follicular or luteal cysts, they will measure around 1 to 8 centimeters in diameter, and they will be lined by either follicular cell or luteinized cell, depending on what type of cyst it is. If there is a pathological problem, they might show some symptoms. Okay, there might be what do you call? They might even be rupture, okay, which might cause abdominal pain, peritoneal reaction and abdominal pain, but it rarely occurs. Okay, generally speaking, follicular and luteal cysts are helpful because they will help in producing enzymes that are helping in maintaining pregnancy. Okay, this is not a harmful cyst. They're actually functional cysts. Then they have the specific function of producing progesterone. Then we have PCOD, polycystic ovarian disease. इसको पॉलिसिस्टिक ओवेरियन सिंड्रोम भी बोलते हैं और स्टाइन लेवेंथल सिंड्रोम भी बोलते हैं. Okay, it is also called PCOD or PCOS. PCOD or PCOS. ठीक है. Now, though the exact cause or pathogenesis of PCOD is not known, it is a very important cause of infertility. Okay, as such, this disorder occurs in young women. Especially, it is associated with oligomenorrhea, where menses are not occurring properly or very little. Menorrhea. Then the patient will have infertility. Patient will have hirsutism. Hirsutism is excessive production of hair all around the body. Okay. There is obesity. The patient will also generally have a problem in they will exhibit insulin resistance. Generally speaking, patients who have PCOD, they will have to take anti-diabetic drugs. ठीक है, और उन लोगों को OHS लेना पड़ता. Then there is persistent anovulation. Okay. Anovulation is basically when your ovary does not produce any oocyte. Okay, that is why infertility is occurring, and the ovary itself will become fibrotic and cystic. So fibrotic and cystic. Actually, fibrotic cysts occur rather than fibrotic and cystic are seen in ovary. Okay. If you look closely, I'll show you one image of PCOD, how it looks, so it will be easier for you to understand. Okay, so this is a normal ovary, whereas in a polycystic ovary there are several cysts. These are fibrous cysts, okay, fluid-filled sacs that are present inside the ovary, and they will cause infertility because whenever uh, polycystic ovarian syndrome is occurring, that ovary will not work properly. Okay, there will be infertility. That particular ovary will not be able to produce oocyte, and the patient will suffer from oligomenorrhea. There will be obesity, insulin resistance. uh, Along with that, so along with these symptoms, the patient will also have um, excessive amount of or excessive production of androgens. Okay, androgens are male sex hormones. So the ovary starts, instead of producing estrogen, it will start producing androgens, and there will be increased conversion of androgen into estrogen. Okay, in appropriate cases, what will happen is gonadotropin production by pituitary will also occur. Okay, there will be inappropriate production of gonadotropin by pituitary. Gonadotropin hormone will not be produced properly by your pituitary gland. As such, ovaries become very, very large because of these cysts being present. Ovaries become large. They will be white studded, and these cysts, they'll generally be subcortical. So subcortical cysts. These cysts will measure around 0.5 to 1 centimeters in diameter, 1 centimeter in diameter. So very small cysts that are occurring, and they are generally covered by a very thick fibrous outer tunica. That is why they are called fibrotic cysts. Okay, there will be a thick fibrous layer kind of thing around this cyst. All right. Now, this PCOD is actually one of the more common types of what you call problems in women nowadays, especially to an extent where almost 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 women, young women, are suffering from PCOD, and they will have a problem of infertility because of that, or at least their fertility will decrease. Okay, so PCOD remains one of the most important problems right now. Now, coming to the next topic, ovarian tumors. You do not have a lot about these ovarian tumors and tumors in general. That is why I'm not going into a lot of detail. You only have a few symptoms and what is occurring. Because there is no exact pathogenesis, at least the pathogenesis of PCOD is not understood, you are spared of that. Now, ovarian tumors, these are common forms of neoplasia. Now, these will generally arise either from surface epithelium. So, on the surface of your ovary, if you look at the ovary like this, it will be either present from the surface, okay, on top, or in subepithelial layers, okay, subsurface epithelium, right under that layer. It can also occur from germ cells, okay, germ cells or sex cord stroma. So ovarian tumors develop from, they can develop from surface epithelium, they can develop from subsurface epithelium, so the layer directly under epithelium, or they can occur from germ cells, okay, or they occur from sex cord stroma. This is basically the connective tissue, okay, tumors that are developing from connective tissue and the cells inside the ovary. So this part that is present inside connective tissue, उसमें से अगर tumors develop हो रहे तो there will be sex cord stromal tumors. Okay, the malignant tumors of ovaries, they generally account for 6% of all cancers in women. All right, and the risk factors for ovarian tumors, so these will occur in around 6% of women. 6% of all cancers in women will be ovarian tumors or ovarian cancers, and the risk factors will include for ovarian tumors nulliparity, wherein the person does not give birth, that is one cause, or it can be hereditary, they are inheriting it from their parents, or it can be a complex genetic syndrome. Okay, genetic problem in their chromosome and DNA. These are the three main risk factors for ovarian tumors. All right, now coming to tumors of surface epithelium. So we'll discuss them one by one. Tumors of surface epithelium. Okay, these constitute around 60 to 70% of all ovarian neoplasms. So these are one of the most common types of tumors, and 90% of all malignant ovarian tumors will be arising from surface epithelium. So surface epithelium tumors are the more common ones. Okay, these are basically 60 to 70% of all ovarian neoplasms. ठीक है, neoplasms can be both benign and malignant. Malignant रहा तो कैंसर बनता, benign रहा तो simply benign tumor जैसा रहता. Okay, 60 to 70% of all ovarian tumors will be arising from your surface epithelium, and these will account for 90% of malignant tumors. Okay, malignant ovarian tumors. Meaning, if I take all ovarian tumors or all ovarian neoplasms, benign and malignant, ठीक है, benign and malignant दोनों, this will develop into cancer. ठीक है, इसमें से 60 to 70, let's suppose I take 1000 neoplasms of your ovaries, out of them 600 to 700 will come from surface epithelium. ठीक है, out of this 600 and 700, let's suppose malignant are 500 and benign are 500. ठीक है, और let me put it this way, hold on, 600 700 बोल रहे हैं ना, we'll take 600 for now. Let's suppose out of 1000, 60% are developing from surface epithelium. मतलब इसका कितना होता, benign let's suppose is 500 and malignant is 500, equal distribution कर देंगे. Now amongst these malignant tumors, 90% of malignant tumors, meaning 450 tumors, will develop from surface epithelium. Okay, if I take all tumors of your ovary, okay, benign and malignant, those that cause cancer and those that do not cause cancer, उसमें से 60 to 70% will be because of surface epithelium. ठीक है, tumors arising from surface epithelium. Now, if I take only 60%, let's suppose I am taking an example where I have 1000 cases of ovarian neoplasms, ovarian tumors. ठीक है, both benign and malignant. उसमें से 60% I am telling are because of surface epithelium. ठीक है, so 600 are because of surface epithelium. उसमें से I equally distribute. Let's suppose I'm taking an example where there is equal distribution of both benign and malignant, meaning not 500, 500, hold on, 300, 300. Sorry about that. So 300 are malignant and 300 are benign. ठीक है, 50-50% अगर कर दिया मैं, surface epithelium के ही tumors बोल रहा हूँ मैं अभी. Out of those 300 malignant tumors, 90% of them will come from surface epithelium. मतलब 90% of surface epithelium tumors will develop, 90% of malignant ovarian tumors will develop from surface epithelium. So this number will not be 450, it will be 270. ठीक है, so if you want to understand the numbers now, as such, common epithelial tumors will be of three main types. They can either be serous tumors, or they can be mucinous tumors where they are producing mucin, mucus layers, or they can be endometrioid. So first of all, coming to serous tumors, that same ovarian tumor or ovarian neoplasm which is developing from surface epithelium, that can be of three types. One is serous, the other is mucinous, the third is endometrioid. Okay, so coming to serous tumors. Now serous tumors are the most common because they are filled with they are filled with cystic fluid. They are called serous epithelium. They will have a serous fluid present inside it, which is somewhat clear. Okay, it will not be as thick, and they can be benign serous tumors, and benign serous tumors, benign serous cysts are basically arising from adenomas. Okay, from glandular tissues. So serous tumors can be of two types. They can either be, if they are benign, one second, right, in case they are benign, they will be benign serous cyst adenoma. Oh dear, what is this? Please be careful of where you are touching the screen. Right. So as I was telling you, can be benign serous cysts, adenoma. ठीक है. Pavani, please be careful of where you are touching the screen. Right. Or if it is malignant, causing cancer, it will generally be a malignant serous cyst adenocarcinoma. In either of these cases, they are arising from a glandular structure. Okay, so it will either be a adenoma or adenocarcinoma. Now, in nearly 25% of the benign cases, meaning 1 in 4, okay, 25% of benign cases, and in 50% of malignant cases, they will be bilateral, meaning it will occur in both the ovaries. Okay, I'll repeat again. In case of 25% of benign cases, meaning 1 in 4 cases, and 50% of malignant cases, meaning every one case in every 2 cases, they will be bilateral, meaning it was occurring in Pavani, please be careful of where you are touching the screen. It will be bilateral where it is occurring in both the ovaries. All right. Now, malignant ones specifically, these will be large solid masses. Okay, they will have large solid areas. So it will be something like this inside the ovary. Okay, and they will have small areas of necrosis. So foci of necrosis can be seen inside this tumor. Along with that, they will invade the capsule. Okay, the tumor itself, they will be nodular and they will invade the capsule and they will end up in the peritoneum. Okay, where they are causing ascites, fluid inside the peritoneum. Okay, this malignant serous tumor, they will grow large solid masses, and inside that mass you will see small areas where necrosis is occurring. It will invade the capsule of your ovary. Okay, and ultimately they will end up forming tumor nodules. So small nodular structures will be formed. Okay, I said nodular structures are formed, and those nodules end up, the tumor itself will end up protruding into your peritoneum, and once it is rupturing that into the peritoneum, it will cause ascites. Okay, this serous fluid will come into the peritoneum, and that is fluid inside your peritoneum is called ascites. Okay, now, as such, serous tumors are more common than mucinous tumors because they are the most common type of tumors. They more often occur bilateral, and mostly they will be more malignant than mucinous tumors. Then we come to mucinous tumors. Now, mucinous and serous tumors में difference ये है कि serous tumors will have filled, what do you call, cysts which are filled with serous fluid. It will be clear fluid. Mucinous tumors will have what you call a thick viscous mucus present inside it. So mucinous tumors, these will mostly be benign. Okay, but sometimes they can be. So there are 3 types of mucinous tumors. They can be benign, or they can be borderline, meaning they are in between benign and malignant, or they can be malignant. Mostly they are borderline or benign. The more common ones that can cause malignancy will be serous tumors. Okay, out of all surface epithelial tumors, see, surface epithelial tumors में 3 types है, serous है, mucinous है, and endometrioid है. Serous tumors are more commonly causing cancers. They are mostly malignant. Okay, they can be benign as well, where they are only causing adenomas, but mostly they are malignant. Mucinous tumors in turn can be benign, or they can be borderline, or they can be malignant. They are mostly benign or malignant though. The more common malignant tumor of surface epithelium will be of serous type. Now, these are also cystic, meaning they will be cyst-like. These are cystic, filled with viscous or thick mucus, okay, or mucinous material. I'll just write mucus, will be easier. Okay, cyst filled with mucus. Now they will implant over the peritoneum, and they will continuously keep secreting mucus, wherein they are causing a condition called pseudomyxoma peritonei, wherein inside the peritoneum you will have a what do you call, myxomatous reaction, which is basically a mucus like substance is being secreted inside your peritoneum, and this will also result from a tumor that is coming from either your appendix. So tumor is coming, it is metastasizing and it's coming to the ovary, and it is causing a pseudomyxoma peritoni, where it is coming from your appendix, or it can come from your large intestine or any other organ of your GIT. Okay? This mucinous tumor can come from elsewhere as well, or it can arise from your ovary itself where it is causing a problem. Then the last type of tumor will be endometrioid. Now endometrioid tumors are always malignant. Okay? They are rare, they occur more rarely, but endometrioid endometrioid tumors always malignant, but rarer to be found. They are more solid, and they are generally rarer than mucinous and serous tumor. The most common will be serous, next will be mucinous, after that will be endometrioid. Okay. Then we have germ cells tumor, germ cell tumors. Now germ cell tumors में बहुत सारे type आते हैं. Inside your ovary there are several types of germ cells, right? Amongst them, the important germ cell tumors will be teratoma, dysgerminoma. So you have teratoma. This is the most significant one, teratoma, because it will start developing teeth, hair, and it will start developing, because it is a germ cell, it can produce other structures, and it is more common for teratoma to have other structures being developed. Okay. You will have muscular tissue developing in the teratoma, you will have hair, you will have teeth, bone. This is all present inside the ovary. Okay, because it is a germ cell, as the tumor is proliferating, it will start forming secondary structures. There is dysgerminoma, there is embryonal carcinoma, and it can be endodermal sinus tumor. Now the more important one in this will be your what do you call, teratoma. Teratoma क्या है? This is also called a benign teratoma, is called a dermoid. Okay, generally it will be cyst filled with what you call fluid, and it will be that fluid will generally, it will have fluid, and it will also have, that cyst will have sebaceous what you call, sebaceous material, and it will have hair inside that tumor. So teratoma is basically a structure where there is a tumor, and inside the tumor you can have hair, or it can be more solid where it will have a neural tissue. Okay, I told you it can develop other kind of tissue inside it. Okay, especially if it is starting to behave malignant, it will start having other structures present inside it. There'll be hair, there'll be teeth. If you actually cut open, let's suppose you perform surgery and you remove a teratoma, malignant teratoma, you'll be able to see secondary structures inside them. You'll be able to see skeletal muscle. You'll be able to see osteocytes, bone tissue inside it. You'll be able to see teeth. You'll be able to see hair. Okay. Also, teratoma generally occurs, germ cell tumors as such will occur in younger women who are less than 25 years of age. Less than 25-year-old. Okay. Generally in the earlier years, 10 to 15 ऐसा develop होना start हो जाता. Okay. So that is about germ cell tumors. In germ cell tumors, the most significant one that you need to remember is teratoma. Mostly it will be what you call, it can be this thing benign. If it is benign, it is called dermoid. Okay. If it is benign, it will be called dermoid. Agar benign nahi hai, if it is becoming malignant, that malignant tumor will start developing other structures of its own. So inside the tumor, you will see hair, teeth, muscle, and bone developing. Okay. Generally occurs in women who are younger than 25 years of age. Let will continue with sex cord tumors tomorrow, and that will complete our ovarian tumors. Ovarian tumors may we have surface and subsurface epithelium tumors. You have germ cell tumors and sex cord tumors. After that, we'll start breast cancer. Okay. Hope you understood.